Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If we can gather into your seats, we'd like to begin our program.
Go ahead and start.
You sure? Ladies and gentlemen, if we can get started, please find your seats. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are your 2017 Women in Leadership Co-Chairs, and we are, thank you, and we are honored on behalf of Executive Women of the Palm Beaches to welcome you to the 34th Annual Women in Leadership Award Luncheon. My name is Natalie Alvarez, and I am the Director and Vice President in North Palm Beach office for Sabado Bank and Trust. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Nichols DeLong with Dominic Cunningham and Wayland.
Good afternoon. I am Amy Morse, Criminal Defense Attorney and Partner at the Law Office of Morse & Morse. For 34 years, Executive Women of the Palm Beaches has recognized outstanding women leaders in Palm Beach County. This year is no different. Today, we honor and recognize 4 honorees from a pool of 36 nominees of highly qualified and talented women in our community. We are delighted that you have joined us as we acknowledge our 2017 honorees. As we continue our program, we respectfully ask that you turn off or silence your cell phones for the duration of the luncheon. Thank you.
We now ask our immediate past president, Sandra Close Turnquist, to come forward and offer today's invocation. Immediately following the invocation, please remain standing for our national anthem, which will be sung by Monique McCall. Sandra.
Let us pray. Creator of all, we give thanks for this day to recognize extraordinary women being honored for their leadership excellence. We give thanks for the talents with which thou hast endowed each of them to serve in leadership roles. We pray and we give thanks for their deepened insight and enduring strength to empower and mentor other women. As we are assembled here, we ask that these women, carriers and cultivators of leadership, continue to be blessed to serve. Thank you for their leadership that continues to bless this community unselfishly. Their gifts and talents have enriched our community, and we celebrate these women who formulate ideas, expand creative energy, and inspires us all to become excellent leaders. Strengthen our intentions to help others and follow you, Almighty Creator, by exemplifying your teachings by serving others. We give thanks and acknowledging these women with bouquets of gratitude and honor. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave
Thank you, ladies. Please be seated and enjoy your lunch while we continue our program. That was absolutely beautiful. At this time, we would like to ask each woman in the audience who has been nominated for a Women in Leadership Award in the last 34 years, including this year, to please stand. We hope you took a look around the room. Each woman standing here today has made a unique contribution to this community, whether as a leader in her chosen profession, a volunteer committed to a mission, or random acts of kindness that bring people in our community together. We thank you for your selfless contribution and commitment to making Palm Beach County a superior community each and every day, and the strides you have made and continue to take in paving the path for women who follow you. Thank you for joining us today. We are grateful you are here. Please join me again in giving these women a round of applause. At this time, we would ask the Board of Directors and past presidents of Executive Women of the Palm Beaches to please stand. We would like to thank you for your contributions and dedication to this organization. Thank you. Now we would like to ask our committee members to please stand and be recognized. As the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we are confident that you've already guessed, neither was this event. Thank you for your contribution. Special thanks goes to Amy Brand and Denise Mariani for spearheading this year's nominee breakfast at the Hilton West Palm Beach. It was a lovely event. We would also like to thank Patty Light for her efforts and contributions to this year's WILA luncheon. Thank you, Patty. And special thanks to Anita Holmes as nominations subcommittee chair. As Amy mentioned earlier in our program, we received 36 nominees this year of highly qualified and truly exceptional women. Thank you. In the audience today, we have several elected officials. At this time, we would like to ask all elected officials to please rise and be recognized.
Thank you. Next, we would like to recognize the sponsors of today's luncheon. Our sponsors make this event possible and enable Executive Women of the Palm Beaches Foundation to award grants and scholarships to worthy recipients in Palm Beach County each year. Last year's luncheon raised $112,000, and the foundation awarded grants to Best Foot Forward, Glades Initiative, and Dress for Success, and scholarships to 24 women to further their education and make a difference in our community. We welcome our students who are here today and thank the following individuals and sponsors for their contributions. Please hold your applause until the end. Without further ado, our 2017 sponsors are as follows. This year's advocate sponsors are the following: Bissett and Allenport, Cummings and Lockwood, Green Spoon Martyr, Illustrated Properties Charities, Janet Michael Nakushian, Catherine Basilio, Kaiser University, Law Office of Crushler Walsh, Compiani and Vargas, PA, Law Office of Morse & Morse, Palm Beach Atlantic University, Palm Beach Gardens Medical Center. This year's patron sponsors are the following: CEMEX, Florida Community Bank, Florida Sugarcane League, and Wilmington Trust. This year's Philanthropist sponsors are the following: Dominic Cunningham and Whalen, Justina Boughton, Jupiter Medical Center Foundation, Office Depot Foundation, and Sabadell Bank and Trust. For the third year in a row, this year's community leader sponsor is PNC. Our pioneer sponsor is Florida Power and Light, who will present this year's Volunteer Sector Award. We would also like to take this opportunity to thank the following: Francis Fisher, who graciously hosted our sponsors' reception at the Ann Norton Sculpture Gardens last night for the fourth year in a row. For those who could attend last evening, we are confident you will agree that it was a lovely event and an exciting preview for today's luncheon. Thank you, Francis. We would also like to thank our award underwriter, Joanne Burko of Ben Ziden Center for Creative Arts in Lake Worth, and one of this year's 2017 WILA nominees. Joanne is the creator of today's awards, the Free to Be statue, which will be presented to each honoree later in the program. Thank you, Joanne. We would also like to thank video underwriter William K. Hornick from Mind's Eye No Limits Corporation, who produced this year's Call to the Heart video, which will be shown later in the program today. Thank you, Bill. We would also like to thank our post-WILA reception underwriter, Cecilia Hudnett, Director of Sales at the Chesterfield Palm Beach, for hosting this year's post-WILA reception for our hardworking committee members. We would also like to thank the Chesterfield Palm Beach for accommodating our keynote speaker, Captain Mark Kelly, while he is in Palm Beach County for our 2017 WILA sponsors reception and luncheon. Thank you. For a complete list of this year's sponsors, please see a copy of today's program. Unfortunately, time does not permit us to name them all, but Executive Women of the Palm Beaches Foundation is grateful for each and every one of our sponsors who make this event possible. Please consider sharing your business with our sponsors who give back to our community and are making a contribution that positively influences women leaders to continue to move forward. Last, but certainly not least, we thank this year's visionary sponsor, Whole Foods Market. Whole Foods Market seeks out the finest natural and organic foods available, maintains the strictest quality standards in the industry, and has an unshakable commitment to sustainable agriculture. The company is also unique in that it adds excitement and fun to shopping for groceries, and it is a mission-driven company. We are proud to welcome visionary sponsor, Whole Foods Market. At this time, we ask Whole Foods Market and our 35th president of Executive Women of the Palm Beaches, Laurie Fisher, to come on stage.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much to all of the members of the Executive Women of the Palm Beaches. My name is Jennifer Jacobs from our Whole Foods Market Regional Marketing Team, and it is truly an honor to be here today. As a company, Whole Foods Market is quite unique. Our stores are not your typical big box store. They find creative ways to meet the needs of our local community when it comes to the needs of our local community and our neighborhood. When it comes to giving, which makes community giving super fun, our team members are very passionate about supporting local causes that are important to our shoppers and our neighbors. At Whole Foods Market, we also believe that community extends beyond the boundaries of the towns and cities where we have stores. To support this mission, we support 3 nonprofit foundations established by our company, committed to improving the lives and opportunities of people locally and around the world. We create economic partnerships in developing world countries that supply our stores through the Whole Planet Foundation. We support schools, children's wellness, and nutrition through the Whole Kids Foundation. And we provide access to fresh, nutritious food in our underserved communities through the Whole Cities Foundation. Locally, we support our communities through donation programs like our 5% Community Giving Day. 4 times a year, our stores hold Community Giving Days where 5% of the day's net sales are donated to a local nonprofit like yourselves. On April 6th, the Executive Women of the Palm Beaches Foundation was the beneficiary of Whole Foods Market Palm Beach County's 5% Community Giving Day. It is with great pleasure that we present you with a donation of $22,952.57. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, and thank you to Whole Foods Market for being our visionary sponsor this year. At this time, we would like to officially introduce you to our 35th President of Executive Women of the Palm Beaches, Laurie Fisher. Laurie is the practice manager of Wellington Physicians Urgent Care, an affiliate of Wellington Regional Medical Center. She joined Executive Women of the Palm Beaches in 2011 and began her term as president in 2016. Laurie has been the chair of Membership and Nominations Committee and has been on the board of directors for the past 5 years. She is a past executive board member for Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, and currently serves on the Medical Advisory Committee. Laurie has created a winning team of board members and committee chairs that have collaborated on today's event. Laurie has a Bachelor of Science degree from Palm Beach State College and is also a graduate of Leadership Palm Beach County class of 2016. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Laurie Fisher.
Thank you, ladies. Good afternoon, distinguished honorees, nominees, members, and guests. Thank you for joining us today. I am so excited to be here. I am deeply humbled to stand before you as the 35th President of Executive Women of the Palm Beaches Foundation as we honor these 36 remarkable and inspirational women who have given so much to so many. Handing out these awards is certainly the highlight of my presidency. EWPB was founded more than 3 decades ago by a small group of influential women who were determined to encourage, support, and acknowledge women leaders in our community. While the working world has changed since 1982, our goals are the same. Our mission is to empower women to lead and succeed by providing and promoting dynamic leadership opportunities for our members and by building quality relationships through networking and sharing our resources in the community. We also use our talents and resources to support educational and charitable activities that make a positive difference for those in Palm Beach County. Our honorees and nominees are a prestigious group of women selected by their colleagues with unbridled passion who have made a dramatic impact in Palm Beach County. I know I'm not alone in that feeling that with every life you touch and every spirit you raise, you create a ripple effect that stretches across Palm Beach County. Congratulations to each and every one of you. You are all outstanding, remarkable women in our community, and we could not be prouder. We would like to recognize this year's nominees for the 2017 Women in Leadership Awards. As I call your name, please stand and be recognized. I kindly ask the audience to please hold your applause until the end. For the nonprofit sector, Maureen Ash, Tammy Baldinger, Carrie Brown, Jessica Cecere, Vivian Connor, Dr. Linda DiPiano, Pamela Gianfrido, Lisa Johnson, Johanna Kendall, Tina Phillips, Judy Pierman, Val Stanley, Marilyn Wick, Tenna Wiles, and Mary Wong. Please join me in congratulating the nonprofit sector nominees for 2017. For the private sector, we have Leora Frere, Gina Grandinette, Michelle Jacobs, Nellie King, Randy Matura, Emily Pantelites, and Jean Marie Whalen. Please join me in congratulating our 2017 private sector nominees. For the public sector, we have Ellen Andel, Carrie Howitt, Denise Neiman, Dr. Jean Wibby, and Lisa Williams-Taylor. For the volunteer sector, Joanne Burko, Rachel Papert-Dosical, Nancy Doherty, Terry Geary, Sharon Gill, Pamela Goodman, Kim Jones, Sally Ross Soder, and Melody Spano. Congratulations. Thank you all for your tremendous contribution to our community and to your respective professions and philanthropic activities. You are an inspiration to us all. Join me again in applauding all of these exceptional women. Please be seated. Today I have the honor of presenting our 2017 Women in Leadership Awards to our 4 honorees. Each honoree also receives an honorary membership in Executive Women of the Palm Beaches for the 2017-2018 year. We are thrilled to invite these women into our organization and hope that each will take an active role in helping to further our mission. At this time, I would like to ask Dr. Linda DiPiano, this year's Women in Leadership Award honoree for the nonprofit sector, to join me on stage. Dr. Linda DiPiano has been a champion for mental health in Palm Beach County for more than 34 years. As the CEO of the Jerome Golden Center for Behavioral Health in West Palm Beach, she oversees 385 professionals who provide a full range of services, including a 44-bed psychiatric hospital, a mobile crisis team, outpatient services, housing, and addiction and co-occurring programs. Linda earned her PhD in clinical community psychology from the University of South Carolina and is a licensed psychologist and certified health risk manager in the state of Florida. She currently chairs on the Florida Council for Behavioral Health, serves on the executive committee of the board of directors of the Florida Council for Community Mental Health, and as a board member of the Mental Health Corporation of America. Linda has recently been selected to become chairwoman of the Joint Commission Behavioral Health Care Professional and Technical Advisory Committee. She serves on the board of directors of the Mental Health Risk Retention Group and chairs the Human Services Coalition of Palm Beach County. She is a busy lady. Additionally, she is an active board member of the Southeast Florida Behavioral Health Network, the managing entity for the region, which includes Palm Beach County. I went onto your website, and I saw that Linda is committed to 4 values. She is committed to operational excellence, innovation, cultural competence, and safety. She creates a teamwork environment with open communication, encouraging cooperation and collaboration. Dr. Piano walks the walk.
Thank you so much for this incredible honor. This means so much more to me than just an individual award. It's recognition of the importance of mental health care. It's also recognition of what we have achieved at the Jerome Golden Center for Behavioral Health and our work in collaboration with many community partners in homeless services, elder care organizations, and child welfare services, just to name a few. We in mental health constantly face an uphill battle for funding to support those who are suffering, many of them suffering in silence. And the majority of those who are suffering are women. There are 40% more likely women are than men to develop depression. I don't know if you knew that. They are also twice as likely to develop PTSD after a traumatic event from either abuse or violence. And while substance use disorders affect men more than women, we are seeing far too many young females who have fallen victim to the opioid epidemic. Some of them are pregnant. This award is one more step towards taking mental illness out of the shadows for both women and men, and acknowledges that you care about helping those who are ill move from a place of despair to a place of hope. Thank you for adding your voice and helping me to break the silence. I share this award with our board, our staff, volunteers, and our community partners, and most importantly, with our clients, because to me, they are the unsung heroes. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next, I would like to ask Nellie King, this year's Women in Leadership Award honoree for the private sector, to join me on stage. Nellie is a noted criminal defense lawyer. She has risen to the top of her field as a result of the local, state, and national leadership roles she has undertaken. Her fierce advocacy on behalf of her clients and a career dedicated to important community endeavors. After serving as president of the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, Nellie oversaw significant work with President Barack Obama's Clemency Project. The Clemency Initiative focused on minimum mandatory sentencing policies, which had resulted in the incarceration of thousands of Americans for nonviolent drug offenses. Only one of 4 women elected president of Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. She is also a past president of the Palm Beach Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. Nellie currently serves on the board of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, Boys Town, South Florida, and the Criminal Justice Commission. She's the 2004 graduate of Leadership Palm Beach County and has been a member of Executive Women since 2004. She received her BA in International Affairs from Mary Washington College in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and her JD from Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale. The University of Mary Washington honored her with a Distinguished Alumnus Award in 2012. Nellie's mission is to provide zealous representation of individuals when they need it most. She believes that the defense of a person's freedom is not to be taken lightly. Please welcome Nellie.
Thank you so much. I truly believe that we stand strongest when we stand with the weakest among us. And the women that we celebrate here today exemplify why this community is strong and successful and unique. Because the causes taken up by this esteemed group address the issues of the poor, the disabled, the mentally ill, the fault-ridden. And I am so very honored to be counted among these women of great inspiration. I want to thank all those that have supported me throughout the years, including my family, who are all here today, my amazing husband, John Wendell, and our 5 children, who together take up most of the table over there. John came to me after some very extreme and challenging life circumstances, and his strength lies in his resilience and his compassion. And of course, the great power of women is in the ability to support, encourage, and laugh with each other. And I am grateful for that, and much more from my G&I friends. This was a group, they're here. This was a group formed by Michelle Gurto, a past president of this organization, and most of them are here today, including fellow nominees Jessica Cecere and Lisa Johnson. And lastly, particular thanks goes to Executive Women member and a colleague in the law, Eunice Barrows. Eunice brought me into this organization a number of years ago and then nominated me for this very special award. So thank you, Eunice. My nomination was based in part on my work with President Obama's Clemency Project. As a criminal defense lawyer, this represents the most important initiative I have undertaken in my career because of the continued devaluation of human life in this country. Consider this. Although the U.S. has less than 5% of world population, it has the dubious distinction of imprisoning 25% of the world's prison population. That represents the highest incarceration rate in the world. We have become a great prison industrial complex with a reputation for meting out particularly long sentences to nonviolent offenders whose sole conduct is related to addiction or mental illness. The Clemency Initiative was supported by the great work of the Foundation for Criminal Justice of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, of which I am a member, and I can't wait to tell you about the success. All told, there were 1,715 commutations granted under the last presidential administration. 314 of those commutations were for life sentences. And I tell you, these were nonviolent offenders. You had to have been in prison for at least 10 years. No firearms could have been involved. Nonviolent drug offenders. The savings in financial terms is estimated at a staggering $427 million in prison costs. But more importantly, the human capital savings estimate is the most staggering. Based on an 80-year lifespan estimate, 13,665 years were reduced, allowing men and women to return to their families and to their communities. And I would be remiss if I did not remind you of the disparate racial impact the war on drugs had on minority communities, which resulted in this monumental, long-standing injustice. Scores of young African-American men and women were simply plucked from their communities as a result of racial inequities within the system, a system which favored minimum mandatory sentences over common sense. My only regret is that we couldn't reach all of them. There are still thousands more who had hopes of filing petitions that we could not reach. But my hope is that these efforts will continue, regardless of political affiliation, and because it is simply the right thing to do. Thank you again for this award. I am humbled and appreciative, and now I'm even more motivated to provide hope to the weakest among us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nellie. Next, I would like to ask my dear friend, Dr. Jean Wibby, this year's Women in Leadership Award honoree for the public sector, to please join me on stage. Oh, be careful.
That was tricky.
We're good?
That was a test.
It was. As the provost and CEO of Palm Beach State College's Lake Worth campus, Dr. Wibby is responsible for providing leadership and inspiration to a campus of more than 30,000 students. Jean leads through encouraging ideas and strong relationships and ensures the quality and relevance of the campus's academic programs. She is actively involved in the PGA Corridor Association Board of Directors as president, and in the Palm Beach North Chamber of Commerce, and on the Women in Business Steering Council and the Palm Beach Gardens Medical Center Board of Governors. Jean was honored as the Women's Chamber of Commerce with the Giraffe Award for Educational Leadership. In 2012, the Palm Beach North Chamber of Commerce awarded her the 2012 Community Leader of the Year. She received the University of Connecticut's 2012 Outstanding Higher Education Professional Award, is a Florida Weekly Power Woman, and has been recognized by both the New England College Board and the Chair Academy with the Exemplary Leaders Awards. Jean holds a BA in Economics from Fairfield University and MS in Counseling from Southern Connecticut State University. She's a National Certified Counselor, and she received her PhD from the University of Connecticut in Educational Psychology. Jean resides in Palm Beach Gardens. Jean has made and will continue to make an outstanding mark on the campus and the community. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, what an honor to be standing here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so honored and proud to receive such a prestigious and significant recognition from the executive women of the Palm Beaches. And I would like to offer my sincere congratulations to the other nominees and recipients. First, I would like to acknowledge and thank the executive women of the Palm Beaches for their work on this program and for all you do for our community. Your tireless commitment to women's leadership and advancement is exemplary, and I'm grateful to be a part of this organization. And thank you to Laurie Fisher and the fantastic Executive Women's Board and staff, the multiple planning, events, and meetings and teams, and a special thanks to Frances Fisher, who throws an amazing reception. She is a cut above. The Executive Women of the Palm Beaches has been a dynamic influence in our community and continues to bring exceptional opportunities to all of us through their mission, programs, and support. Moreover, I thank all of you who understand and support Palm Beach State College and our sister educational institutions. I said that for Dr. Elia Watlington. That counts as an FAU plug. And believe in the value of education and business collaboration. I would like to recognize our leader at Palm Beach State College, President Ava Parker. She's over here at our table. She is a true leader and a partner and has done an exceptional job at the college for the past 2 years. Please come over and see us. We're table 16. I would also like to recognize the exceptional professionals and students from Palm Beach State College and our business partners joining our tables. I'm here with my sister, cousin, administrative assistants, deans, and friends, and the people who do the real work. So I have the most phenomenal job. I have the most phenomenal job in the world because I work at one of the finest institutions of higher education. And I thank you for giving us this recognition for our work. And I say us because this award was earned through the work of many college stakeholders and signifies the work of so many people. The college's Board of Trustees, our president, Ava Parker, my staff, my family, and those who understand that the work we do in the community is essential. Thus, my ability to get off campus, get outside, and meet with all of you, to engage as many partners as I can. And it's for a couple of good reasons. For the goal of creating opportunities for our students and for you and for your businesses and for our community. I'm so humbled and pleased to be recognized for the work we do to advance students. They too are our community members who benefit from the opportunities for a better quality of life through education and business partnerships. So many of you have helped keep Palm Beach State College in the community's landscape, and so many of you have our students working for you, our talented people at your businesses, professional occupations, and companies. And so what makes great leaders? And what is my recipe? So leadership is not about a title or a position. It's about getting people to believe in your vision. And visions are about getting people to be better and getting to excellence. Leaders are able to garner interest and support for important ideas and to cultivate believers because you have inspired them. For leadership greatness, I believe the secret here is passion. Next, it's about people and for people. So the formula is to care. Take time to get to know people, who they are, what they're interested in. In my job, it aligns with engaging the college, our students, our community, and to be influenced by these connections is very important. The next part is also important to my leadership house blend. As mentioned, it's holding tight to the vision because leadership is translating the vision into reality. And my vision for everyone is to have a prosperous and remarkable quality of life through excellence in education. And you don't get to excellence or excellent alone. It's the industrious work and dedication of so many and a combined effort for true leadership to work and matter. So over the years, I've discovered that some of the attributes of my leadership are universal and are often about finding ways to encourage people to combine their efforts, their talents and insights, their enthusiasm and inspiration to work together. The Executive Women of the Palm Beaches has an outstanding network of women who are committed to fostering women's achievement and connection that bring us to success and the significance I'm talking about, empowering women to succeed and lead. So you have invited me to the table to be a part of your boards, hospitals, service, civic organizations, golf tournaments, rubber chicken lunches, dinners, and have made it possible for me and the college to meet with the leaders and area officials to encourage support for the college. And this gives us all the power to advance our connections, to be mutually interested in each other's work, to go see what we're all doing. Come visit us. See what we're involved with. I want to come and see what you're doing. Invite us. We'll come. So thank you. And in conclusion, my goals have been twofold with a third surprise outcome. First, to be an active community participant so that my presence reminds people that education is important. Secondly, that Palm Beach State College is a resource for you. After all, it's your state college. And the third goal has been to have fun and enjoy what I'm doing. And as a result, I have met the most wonderful, captivating people who have become my colleagues and friends, especially so many of you out in this audience, executive women members, and so many phenomenal people in this community. Please keep doing what you're doing. We all need you to continue to step out of your offices and donate your valuable time, your ideas, and your commitment to learning and growing for the benefit of others. There's really nothing more honorable than that. You are the Palm Beach State College's ambassadors who demonstrate and see the value of education in our community. I have been deliberate about being involved in this community because of what I value and believe in, helping others achieve and succeed. So overall, I could not do what I do without the encouragement, collaboration, and energy of so many. You have family members attending the college. Some of you teach for us. Others serve on our advisory boards, and your businesses employ our graduates. We cannot thank you enough for making the college and our students important. I'm greatly humbled, and this is truly an important honor. This is a phenomenal, amazing feeling right now. I put it all out on you to feel the same way. This is a wonderful day. Thank you. I am so very, very grateful and honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. At this time, I would like to welcome Sophia Eccleston, External Affairs Manager for FP&L, to the stage. Hold on, give me 1 second. As pioneer sponsor, FP&L is sponsoring and presenting this year's Volunteer Sector Women in Leadership Award.
Thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome.
FPL is honored to present this year's Volunteer Sector in Women in Leadership Award. At this time, I'd like to ask Yvonne Boyce, 2016 Women in Leadership Award honoree in the volunteer sector, and Sharon Gill, this year's Women in Leadership Award honoree in the volunteer sector, to join me on stage. When Sharon Gill left Jamaica for the US at the age of 21, she had $56 in her pocket. Decades later, she is the COO of the Gill Law Firm and founder CEO of Oasis Compassion Agency, which helps the underprivileged with a food pantry, clothing store, housing skills, development, and job placement. Since its inception in 2003, Oasis has assisted more than 10,000 individuals in Palm Beach County and become self-sufficient, motivated, empowered, and successful members of the community. Sharon received the 2008 Giraffe Awards from the Women's Chamber of Commerce, Palm Beach State College 2010 MLK Leadership Award, and the Distinguished Achiever Award from the International Career and Business Alliance. She has been named one of the 25 most influential and prominent Black women in leadership and business by the Palm Beach Post. In 2010, Sharon went back to school to finish her degree, postponed to raise her family. She graduated summa cum laude from Palm Beach State Atlantic University, MacArthur School Leadership with a BA in Organizational Management and Leadership. She serves on the board of the Women's Chamber Foundation, Empower Her of the Palm Beaches, UMOM, and Palm Beach Atlantic alumni. She resides in the city of Atlantis with her husband of 30 years, Wayne, and children Gavin and Brittany. Congratulations, Sharon.
Thank you so much. To be honored for something that you believe that you're called to do is truly a blessing. 31 years ago, I came to the United States from Jamaica with $56 and a dream of a successful life. And while I have accomplished material success, I later redefined success as something totally different. I believe it's living a life that blesses and inspires others to reach for the best in themselves, both economically and spiritually. That became my personal mission. And when I accomplished that, that's when I feel successful. The Oasis Compassion Agency's mission is closely aligned to my personal mission. And over the last 14 years, we have had a profound impact on thousands in our community. And of course, this was not done by myself, and time doesn't allow for me to thank all the donors and partners and volunteers who have played a major role. But I do have a few people with me here today that I do want to acknowledge. And the first person is my husband, Wayne, who is a co-founder and my first financial backer. And, and the person who's my #1 supporter. And I would not and could not do this without Wayne. So Wayne, I share this honor with you. And the next person is my daughter, Brittany, a recent grad, I'm so proud of her, who spent several summers, her and her brother, at Oasis because I wanted them to know the value of serving others and what it felt like to live in someone else's shoe. And lastly, I have my director of operations here, Maybelle Leon, who inspires me every day to keep going because in 2010, she came to the agency as a client, a victim of domestic violence with her 2 children. She barely spoke a word of English, but we saw the value in her. And our agency made an investment in those lives. And here she is, 7 years later, she is running the operations. She's one of the most efficient person I've ever employed, and this includes people at my law firm. And she keeps me motivated to continue the mission each and every day because, as you know, in the nonprofit sector, it gets tough with funding, it gets tough. But when I look at the result of what we have been able to accomplish, it gives me the energy and the motivation to continue on. So thank you, WILA, for this great honor. And again, I am so humbled by it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Florida Power and Light, for sponsoring and presenting this year's Volunteer Sector Award and the Women Leadership Award Luncheon. On behalf of Executive Women of the Palm Beaches Foundation, I would like to thank Florida Power and Light for their continued support of our organization. We thank you. Please join us. One last round of applause for our 2017 Women Leadership Award honorees. I am now extremely delighted to be the one to introduce our honorary chair, Virginia Spencer. On a day where we gather and give to celebrate leadership and community, there's no one who better embodies the qualities of a true leader. Virginia is insightful, values-driven, compassionate, determined, and committed to a life of service. Virginia Spencer has served as general manager for Illustrated Property since 1998, managing the activities of 550-plus associates and 23 offices. Virginia's philanthropy throughout Palm Beach County is boundless. She is the founding member of Illustrated Property Charities. She helped establish the organization from a group of associates in 2005. For the past 5 years, she has presented the Virginia Spencer Award to an agent in her company that demonstrates outstanding community involvement. Virginia serves on the local Girl Scouts board for the past 15 years and currently volunteers on the Girl Scouts of Southeast Florida Emerald Award Event Committee. As a result of her dedication to the Girl Scouts, she was awarded the Lifetime Service Award in 2016. Virginia is also one of the 100 founding members of Impact Palm Beach County, a group of women assisting many causes in our local community. As a member of Executive Women of the Palm Beaches since 1998, she served as president in 2009, 2010. She was chair of the Executive Women of the Palm Beaches Foundation from 2012 to 2014. She has been deeply involved with the Lois Quasman Program for Community Impact, which has distributed more than $220,000 to programs benefiting Palm Beach County girls ages 12 to 21. Her dedication, commitment, and support to young women entering college is one of Virginia's most admirable pursuits. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to our honorary chair, Virginia Spencer.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Thank you so much, Natalie. I'm going to have to repeat a few of the things because I didn't know I thought Natalie was just going to introduce me today, so this was a nice surprise. But I would like to congratulate Jean Whitby, Nellie King, Linda DePiano, and Sharon Gill for being outstanding honorees for the 34th Annual Women in Leadership event. And I know we are looking forward to hearing from our speaker today, Captain Mark Kelly, telling us about his exciting adventures on the International Space Station. I would also like to thank my wonderful husband, Perry, and my two daughters, Diane and Ashley, for being here today. And for their love and support, I feel very blessed. Just a sec. Who would have thought a girl from Kansas City would be standing here today? I feel so honored for this special recognition that you have bestowed upon me. Through my 20 years with Executive Women as president in 2010 and foundation chair 2012 and 14, and serving with the Quasman Grant Committee for 10 plus years, I have met so many wonderful and accomplished women in the community that have supported me in my endeavors and have enriched my life. Many of you sitting here today have supported me as we laugh together over a glass of wine or work together to obtain our goals and make our community a better place to live. Through the 24 scholarships we have given this year and the over $220,000 in the past 11 years for our Quasman grants, which support girls' programs in our area, I am proud to have been a part of this and through the years, a sponsor. The Illustrated Properties family of agents and staff have also been there for me with their support and friendship as we tackle charity projects and support them through our Illustrated Properties charities. And the company, too, has honored me by creating the Virginia Spencer Award, which is given out to a person in our company every year. I would like to thank my Illustrated Properties family for coming today and for their support. Through this wonderful recognition and honor today, I will be setting up a scholarship at Palm Beach Atlantic University for a student in the School of Education. The first scholarship will be given out in the spring of 2019. Once again, thank you to the Women in Leadership Committee and others for this wonderful recognition today. I am so proud to be a member of Executive Women. I will leave you with this thought of the day from Franklin Roosevelt. Happiness lies in the joy of achievement and the thrill of creative effort. Thank you so much.
Virginia, we thank you for all of your support for Executive Women of the Palm Beaches, and we've got a small token of our appreciation, which is the Free to Be vase. Well, I just have to plug my alma mater, Palm Beach Atlantic University. Yoo-hoo. At this time, I'd like to welcome back our immediate past president, Sandra Close Turnquest, as she will provide the call to the heart segment.
The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Mahatma Gandhi. As I thought of my own personal journey, it became apparent why call to the heart speaks to more than our humanity and desire to assist others financially. The mantra also speaks to the profound, unselfish nature one must have to serve others with excellence, determination, and authenticity. Clearly, our beloved founder, Cynthia Allen Gracie, exemplified this spirit of devotion and dedication as a leader and a visionary. While preparing myself and reminiscing, I equated my dreams as a young girl that came from humble beginnings and means to my heart that beats 100,000 times a day, as does yours. Scholarships, my work ethic, and the desires of incredible women to mentor me served as the blood and nourishment that ensured my success. The heart is an amazing and complex muscle that requires oxygen, blood, and nutrients to sustain the needs of the body. In our case, the thousands of young women in our communities are the body we're dedicated to keeping vibrant, educated, and successful. For 34 years, EWPB has served as a committed heart and formidable lifeline dedicated to ensuring that women such as myself and others continue to excel academically. Since EWPB's inception, quitting during the daunting task of fundraising was never an option. Our outreach programs have served as the oxygen required for young women to breathe life into concepts and transform them into degrees and businesses. Yes, we are immensely grateful that with your continued support, we've granted in excess of $600,000 in scholarships. Absolutely give yourselves a round of applause. With your dedication and generosity, we've changed lives and made dreams themselves dream bigger. We've eradicated student debt and empowered women with peace and hope instead of frustration and worry because of your kindness. It is our mission to make certain that we are the arteries that continue to pump hope, light, tenacity, and financial support to every young woman that dares to pursue their dreams. Let us now take a moment to view the Call to the Heart video. Let it touch your heart. Roll it, please. I like saying that. She will forever be remembered in our organization and this community. We are indeed eternally grateful for your continued support. We sincerely believe, as one of my favorites, Dickens, said, "No one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of another." With your help, we can do more than lighten. We can eradicate fear and uncertainty for those that seek higher education. Future artists, social workers, biologists, and CEOs are waiting to be mentored and develop. Your donations today will provide grants to a wonderful network of organizations skilled to transform apprentices into masterminds and future entrepreneurs. Therefore, we're making a call to your hearts. It's not just see a girl with the potential, but imagine the visions of great women actualize. We're calling on you to not just give, but empower a daughter who is the first in her family to graduate high school. With your donations and gift of love today, we're changing the course of history one heart at a time. We're honored to be the lifeline for amazing hearts and minds that will serve, inspire, educate, and become beacons of light for others to follow. Thank you for being part of something bigger than yourself by making a donation in the envelopes on your tables. These envelopes are on your tables. There are pins, and members of our organization will now be coming around to collect your organizations. But before we start that, we would like to recognize and present flowers to Cynthia's mom, Miss Isabel Furlow. Would you please stand, Miss Isabel?
Thank you, Sandra. And thank you to all of you who open your hearts today and contribute to making the dreams come true for young women in our community. After all, these women are our future, our tomorrow. Thank you. For those of you making donations today, you will be part of our Call to the Heart raffle at the conclusion of our program. Thank you to our Call to the Heart sponsors listed in your program who kindly donated these items totaling thousands of dollars. This year's prizes include a Kendra Scott jewelry and home package valued over $1,000, a weekend at the Chesterfield Hotel, an Italian leather purse, and a clutch bracelet valued at $800, a Coco Fit membership valued at $1,000 with a Pandora bracelet valued at $500, and 2 gift baskets, including 3 bottles of wine each and several gift cards to enjoy dinner and activities around Palm Beach County. Good luck to all of you, and thank you very much for your generosity. Now I would like to introduce Pamela Dean, Senior Vice President with PNC Bank, as the Community Leader Sponsor. Pamela, on behalf of PNC, will introduce our guest speaker. Pamela.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our keynote speaker, Captain Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly is an American astronaut, a U.S. Navy captain, and an experienced naval aviator who flew combat missions during the Gulf War. He flew his first of 4 space shuttles missions in 2001 aboard the Endeavour, the same space shuttle that he commanded on its final flight in 2001. He is one of only 2 individuals who have visited the International Space Ship, or Space Station, on 4 different occasions. With 6,000 flight hours and more than 50 different aircrafts, 39 combat missions, and more than 50 days in space, Mark Kelly is one of our country's most experienced pilots. Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the screen for a short video.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Captain Mark Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Hello, executive women. It is so great to be here in Palm Beach, where gravity works most of the time, where I can breathe oxygen at will, and where it would appear that most of you are not space aliens. But to the rest of you, let me just say, I come in peace. You know, Bono and I have something in common. My wife, Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, is in love with both of us. You see, a couple of weeks before Gabby and I were to get married, she sat me down and she said, you know, Mark, I've been looking for the right person for a long time, and I'm pretty sure that's you. But I need to tell you something. And then she sat me down, and then she explained to me that there was somebody else. And then she told me that that person was Bono. Well, about a month or so after Gabby was injured and recovering in this hospital in Houston, Texas, in a rehab hospital, I get a call on my cell phone, and the guy on the other end of the phone says, Mark, this is Bono. And I said, Bono who? He said, it's just Bono. And then he proceeded to tell me how he felt like he had met my wife, Gabby, before. He thought, you know, he saw everything that happened with her in her district, getting shot. He watched this all on TV, and he had this really strong feeling that he met her when he visited members of Congress on Capitol Hill. So Bono told me that he went back and he took a look at all the pictures that he'd taken with members of Congress, and he found the picture of him and Gabby. And then he told me that he now kept that picture on his desk at home. And I said, huh. What a coincidence. It's the same picture that Gabby has on her desk. There's no picture of me and Gabby. Wasn't even Gabby and any president, just Gabby and Bono. So needless to say, I did not invite him to come visit her in the hospital. You know, like many of you in this room, I came from a rather ordinary background. I grew up in New Jersey, about 20 miles outside of New York City, in this place called West Orange. And West Orange. And my dad was this stereotypical, tough New Jersey Irish detective who used to come home at least once a year with a cast on his right arm. Now, he would tell my twin brothers, Scott and I, that he broke his hand fighting crime. I would later learn that there were a lot more bar fights than there was crime fighting. And my mother was a secretary and a waitress pretty much at the same time. And this was at a time in my life that I didn't do particularly well in school. I didn't get good grades. I didn't have any goals, not really any great direction. And I didn't really work really hard at anything. It was around the time I was in middle school, and for some reason, around that time, my mother decided she was going to become a police officer like my dad. And this was New Jersey in the 1970s, and for a woman to become a cop was a really difficult thing to do. And my mother had to pass a test, and part of this test was a physical fitness test that included climbing over this 7-foot 2-inch wall. Now, my mom was all of about 4 feet 13 inches. She had to climb over this wall, and to help my mother out, my dad built a replica of this thing in our backyard. He didn't tell her he made it an inch higher at 7'3". And I'd watch my mother go out there after dinner every night, and initially she couldn't even reach the top of this thing. And when she could, she would just fall off into the dirt. But after months and months of practicing, when she finally took this test, instead of getting over in the required 9 seconds, she got over in 4.5, which was much faster than almost all of the men, and she became one of the first female police officers in that part of New Jersey. Well, this is the first time in my life I saw the power of having a goal and a plan and what it meant to work really, really hard. So it was what my mother went through that really motivated me at a very young age to work hard and set some goals, and it really helped. And I started doing better in school. I even had a couple jobs while I was through high school, and one job I had from the time I could basically drive a car until I graduated from college and went off to fly airplanes for the Navy was driving an ambulance in the cities of Orange, East Orange, and Newark, New Jersey as an EMT. And one of the last patients I ever dealt with was a young man I picked up off the sidewalk in Newark, New Jersey, who had 7 bullet holes in him. And one of those was a gunshot wound to the head. And the experience with that guy on that sidewalk in New Jersey in, I think, 1985, came back in a flash as I first learned the extent of my wife Gabby's injuries. Now, unlike me, my wife Gabby Gifford, she was your classic overachiever. She grew up in Tucson, Arizona, where she went to the school for the gifted and talented kids. Now, in New Jersey, we hated those kids. And when I met my wife on this trip to China, she seemed like 10 women at once to me, right? She was the CEO of her family's tire and automotive business. She was the youngest woman ever elected to the state senate in the state of Arizona. She'd gone to an Ivy League school. She was a Fulbright scholar. She even raced motorcycles. And like my mother, I could tell that Gabby was a woman that worked incredibly hard and had some really serious goals and had a plan to achieve them. And one of Gabby's goals was, if ever given the opportunity, she really wanted to serve her community as a member of Congress. Well, I had some lofty goals myself. Even before I graduated from high school, I decided I was going to be the very first person to walk on the planet Mars. I really believed if I worked hard enough and got lucky along the way, I'd make it to Mars someday. Well, I left NASA several years ago without ever making it to Mars, but I did get kind of close. I made it into space 4 times. Now, if any of you think that's impressive, getting into space 4 times, just think of how impressed the aliens were when I told them that I have visited the planet Earth 5 times. They were really impressed. But to get there, I had to have a plan. And my plan was to become a naval aviator and then a Navy test pilot and then an astronaut. Maybe I'd make it to Mars someday. Well, I graduated from college in 1986, and I headed off to flight school at the Naval Air Station in Pensacola, Florida. Does anybody in here remember what movie came out in 1986? Top Gun. Well, I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you this. I'll tell you anyway. So literally, as I drove through the gate of the Naval Air Station, I had that cheesy music from the movie playing on the tape deck. I think it was the Danger Zone song. And then I get there and I start flying for the Navy, and I very quickly find out that I am not Maverick. I am not a particularly good pilot. I really struggled for a long period of time. You know what the Navy does to you after about a year in flight school? They send you to land on a ship for the first time. And when the Navy sends you to land on an aircraft carrier for the very first time, there is not anybody crazy enough to go with you. You go all by yourself, empty back seat of this airplane. I remember like yesterday flying out of the Naval Air Station in Jacksonville, Florida, just up the coast, out to the USS Forrestal. Nobody in the back seat. I could barely land on the runway. And I'm heading out to the ship, and you get overhead the ship, and it looks like a little postage stamp bobbing in the ocean, the landing area. I turn downwind, and I put my landing gear, my flaps down, and I'm going to do what's called touch and go landing. Initially, I'm going to just touch the deck and take off again. I did that twice. Third time around, I put the tail hook down, and this hook is supposed to grab one of the 4 wires that's strung across the back of the ship. I completely missed the wires, wound up landing in the wrong place, up in the air again. I came around a 4th time. Guess I landed generally in the right place, and hook grabs the wire, and it's like getting in a crash in your car. I mean, you go from 150 knots to nothing in like 200 feet. So it's like crashing in your car. You pull the power back, you raise this hook, you go to this catapult, you get hooked up to the catapult, and they shoot you off the front of the ship. 0 to 150 miles an hour in a couple seconds. And I did that 3 more times, entire experience just a blur, barely remember any of it, with the exception at one point, one of the deckhands giving me an obscene gesture with one of his fingers. Not this finger. Still don't know what that was about. And then a little while later, I get shot off the front of the ship again, and I go back to the Naval Air Station at Jacksonville, Florida, and I land. And later that evening, I get debriefed by the instructor pilot that was watching from the back of the ship, the guy giving me my grades. You know the first thing this guy says to me is? He says, "Are you sure this career is for you?" He says, "You didn't do well." I'd be the first to admit how poorly I did. You know, in fact, I think Tom Cruise would have been better at that than me. And I don't mean the character from the movie, I mean the actor. Tom Cruise probably would have been better at landing on the ship than I was. But you know what? I didn't give up. And the guys that did really well that day did not go on to become test pilots or astronauts. I know this because I often see them at the front on Southwest Airlines. Just kidding. Really like Southwest Airlines. But, you know, I really believe this. This has always been true for me, that, you know, how good you are at the beginning of anything you try, it's not a good indicator of how good you can become. You know, I am a prime example of somebody who was able to overcome a serious lack of aptitude for something. Serious lack of aptitude. With practice, persistence, and just not giving up. It's actually the only thing that really ever worked well for me. You know, I think for all of us, certainly for me, you know, life has been a set of challenges. Some personal, some professional. And one of my other early professional challenges happened in the summer of 1990 when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. I was a pilot of an airplane called an A-6 Intruder, which is a 2-person, all-weather ground attack airplane. Finally figured out how to land on the ship. And I was stationed in Japan aboard the aircraft carrier, the USS Midway. And by the fall of that year, we were heading down through the South China Sea and across the Indian Ocean and up into the Persian Gulf, and we got there around Thanksgiving. And on January 17th of 1991, it was time for me to fly my first combat mission. Now, this airplane I flew was a 2-person airplane. I was a pilot. I have another guy with me, and he was the bombardier navigator. And my bombardier navigator was a guy named Paul Fujimura, and Paul was a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley. I think he's perhaps the only person from Berkeley ever to go in the military. But he was a good guy. He was good at his job. And that evening, Paul and I headed up to the flight deck early. It was a really dark night. There was no moon in the sky. And there's these guys in red shirts called ordies loading bombs and missiles onto all the airplanes, ours included. And Paul and I were going to carry 8 1,000-pound bombs to drop at a place called Shaiba Airfield, on a maintenance hangar at Shaiba Airfield, which is in the city of Basra in southern Iraq. And we hop into the airplane early. We turn on the batteries, avionics, radios, and it doesn't take us long to hear another A-6 Intruder just like ours just get shot down in southern Iraq. And now they're looking for the crew members. A little while later, we start the engines, close the canopy, taxi to the catapult. We get shot off the front of the ship. We fly a couple hours north. We rendezvous with this airborne fuel tanker and take on a full load of gas, and then proceed further north towards the southern coast of Iraq in the northern part of the Persian Gulf. And as soon as we get over land, we can see anti-aircraft artillery, AAA, bullets coming up from the ground through the sky at us. And at night, you could see these tracers. And as the Iraqis on the ground would move these guns back and forth, it looks like these snakes coming up through the sky at you. Now, Winston Churchill said about his personal experience in combat, He said, there's nothing more exciting than being shot at and missed. Well, speaking from experience, the miss part was kind of important. And to get to our target that night, we had to go through this area in southern Iraq that had a really big air defense system. The Iraqis bought these surface-to-air missiles and anti-aircraft artillery from the Soviet Union and from Russia later, and we had to go through these missile envelopes to get to our target. And after we made this left-hand turn, we're right in the middle of these missile envelopes, and most of these missile batteries were to my left. So I kept looking over my left shoulder, and I got to tell you, the worst feeling I've ever had in my life up to that point was seeing that missile come up at our airplane. Big, white, bright dot, just getting bigger, not moving forward or aft in the canopy. If it just stays in the same place relative to you and just grows in size, you know what that means? It means it's coming right at you. And as soon as I realize this, I say to Paul, hey, I think we have a missile tracking on us. Now, his job is to find this hangar on this radar, on a radar and an infrared sensor, so he's looking at these screens. He's got his hand on this joystick. And I tell him about this missile, and his only response to me is, Paul says, Roger, I'm tracking the target, meaning the hangar. A little while later, I say, hey, this isn't good. This thing's coming right at us. And again, his only response is, Roger, I'm tracking the target. So he's doing what we call in the Navy or at NASA, compartmentalization, which is focusing on the stuff that he can control and not being worried about the stuff outside of his control. That missile, that's my problem. Now, I know for a lot of you, right? A lot of you in the business community, there are so many things that are distractions that you have no influence over, right? It could be, government regulation, the economy, other things, what your competitors are doing. Little control over that. Sometimes the best that any of us can do is try to remember to focus on the things we have some influence over and trying to forget the rest. A little while later, I said, Paul, this is not good. This thing's going to hit us. I'm going to have to do a last-ditch maneuver or something. And again, he just says, okay, nothing beyond that. I add full power. I roll this airplane upside down. I put the stick in my lap. We go down. Missile flies over the top of us and explodes. Big explosion. The airplane shakes. I get the airplane turned upright again. I look at the instrument panel, and both engines are still running, and all 4 hydraulic systems still have pressure. So it doesn't seem like we have any holes in the airplane. And then I get turned back towards the target, back towards Shaiba Airfield. You know what's worse than seeing the first missile? Seeing the second one. It's like not a good day so far. This is not a lot of fun. I mean, this is not how I expected this thing to turn out. And we go through the same process again. And I could not be more impressed with the guy that I'm flying with in his ability to compartmentalize, focus, right? Focus on the important stuff, the thing that he had some control over, which was where we were in relation to this target. And we wind up in the same position, upside down. This time the missile flies over the top, goes off into the distance, doesn't blow up. A little while later, we wind up in our 30-degree dive over Shaiba Airfield, and we got to go through these clouds. Clouds are all orange because there were airplanes there ahead of us dropping their weapons at the airfield. There were fires at the airfield, and there's bullets coming up through the clouds at us, and we go down through the clouds. Eventually, I see the runway. I see the hangar. I hit that button on the stick. 8,000 pounds of bombs go flying. Airplane kind of jumps up back in the air because it's lighter. We turn around to leave. It's not like on TV. You don't actually hang around to see if you blew anything up. Turn around. Let's go. And I immediately say to Paul, I said, hey, we almost got shot down, like at least twice that we know about. And I really don't want to go back through those missile envelopes to get out of here. And he said to me, he goes, that's the route we have on our chart. He goes, I don't think we have another option. That's how we're supposed to leave. I said, Paul, I've got a better idea. I said, we're going to go east. Do you know what's east of Iraq? Iran. I said, Paul, we're going to go into Iran. And he says to me, are you sure that's a good idea? He says, I don't think we're allowed to go into Iran. So I say, Paul, we're doing this. So So we go like 100 miles into Iranian airspace. I now make this right-hand turn. We're going south, not getting shot at anymore. I'm starting to think to myself, hey, we probably, we survived our first combat mission. We probably hit the target. I'm looking forward to getting back to the ship. There's no AAA. There's no missiles. A little while later, around the time we get to the coastline, as we approach the coastline, I can hear our air wing vectoring 2 of our Navy F-18 fighters onto an enemy Iraqi airplane somewhere. And I think to myself, well, we just survived a couple surface-to-air missiles, but that Iraqi pilot, wherever that guy is not going to survive a missile coming off of one of our fighters. If they put that missile in the air, that guy's dead. And a little while later, they start calling out the airspeed and the altitude of the enemy fighter. And I'm looking at my gauges. 550 knots, 15,000 feet. What a coincidence. It's the same as us. And it took a couple seconds for the light bulb to come on. And as soon as it did, I pulled back the power to slow down. I put out the speed brakes. And I yelled into the radio, "Do not shoot down the moron in Iranian airspace." Because it was me. Well, it was a quiet trip back to the ship. Paul did not say anything to me. Not actually sure he has said anything to me since. But it gave me a lot of time to think, and I've thought about that night in every job I have had since, whether it was in the Navy or at NASA. And what I learned that night over Iran, was there's never an excuse for not communicating with the people you work with. I mean, really, like timely and accurate communication is so important in everything we all do. And on that night, I didn't do that. It nearly cost me my life. When my wife, Gabby, entered Congress for the first time in 2007, I thought I had the risky job. I'd flown 39 combat missions. By that point, I'd also flown twice on the space shuttle. But as it would turn out, my wife, Gabby, is the one who would nearly lose her life serving her country. On the day she was injured, there was no countdown clock. And what I mean by that is normally for like these big events in my life, there's a clock and it starts on time, whether it's a space flight or a combat mission. And I pretty much know the kind of trajectory I'm going to be on and the kind of decisions I'm going to have to make. But on that day in January of 2011, there was no clock. It's just the ringing of my cell phone. I was at home that morning in Houston, Texas. Gabby and I had one of those commuter marriages, which included Houston, where the Johnson Space Center was, close to where I lived, Tucson, Arizona, which was where her congressional district was, and Washington, D.C., where she served in Congress normally during the week. And it was a Saturday morning, and I'd just gotten off the phone with my wife, and I knew she was going to this Safeway supermarket where she did this thing she called Congress on Your Corner, where she would stand in this parking lot and take the questions of her constituents. And she would stand there all day if that's what it took to do the most basic thing in a democracy, and that's to listen to the people that you represent. And I'd just gotten off the phone with her, and I was talking to my eldest daughter my daughter Claudia, about a boyfriend problem. Now, she was 16 years old, so she would certainly tell all of you that it was not her or the boyfriend that had a problem, but it was me. And my cell phone rings, and it's Gabby's chief of staff, a young woman named Pia Carasone. Says, "Mark, I don't know how to tell you this, but Gabby's been shot." She didn't have a lot of information. We hung up from that phone call. I told my daughter Claudia, I said, "Wake your sister up." And then a little while later, I started thinking to myself, did that really just happen? Did I really just get that phone call? Maybe I imagined it. So I walked up to my cell phone, I picked it up off the table, and I looked at it, and I saw that I had that incoming call from Pia. And then I called her back, and that's when she gave me the really devastating news that my wife Gabby had been shot in the head. The experience with that young guy on that sidewalk in New Jersey in 1985 came back in a flash. What the consequences of that gunshot wound were to him and how this is likely to turn out for my wife. It was at that point I realized that this is certainly going to be the biggest challenge, personal and professional, of both of our lives. Well, I had to get to Tucson in a hurry. Fortunately for me, I had a good friend with a private corporate airplane. My mom, my kids. We head to the airport. We jump into this airplane for the 2-hour flight from Houston to Tucson. And well, I got to say, I think one of the other dumber things I've done in my life is to watch this whole day unfold on TV, on an airplane, without the ability to call anybody. And we get about halfway to Tucson, and that's when CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News all pronounce Gabby dead. My mom screams, and the kids start crying. I didn't know what to do at that point. We sat there for about 30 minutes, mostly looking at her picture on TV and that little graphic that said Gabrielle Giffords, 1970 to 2011. A little while later, they came back and they said they made a mistake. She was actually in surgery. You know, the media shouldn't be pronouncing people dead. I think they should leave that up to doctors to do. And I could tell you this, my wife, Gabby, was not going to get taken out by cable news. We land about an hour later, and I immediately go to this hospital, and I very quickly find myself in this conference room with all these hospital administration people and the FBI and police and doctors and nurses. And I first start to figure out what this means to be the primary caregiver. Right? I'd heard that term before. I never really thought about it. I think I may have seen it on a NASA form. But I never really contemplated the possibility that I would have to make serious decisions for the health care for my wife, the woman I loved. I mean, like really important decisions. And it's a challenging situation to be in. And early in Gabby's stay in the hospital, doctors had to make a decision on a second brain surgery that my wife Gabby needed. Now, Gabby was shot from about 3 feet away, right in the middle of the left side of her forehead, with a 9mm round. Some of the bullet went out the back, not all of it. But with that gunshot wound, the energy from that gunshot wound did to her, as well as a horrific traumatic brain injury that kills 99% of the people that get this kind of gunshot wound. It also happened to fracture the top of both of her eye sockets. And the right side was really bad, needed to be repaired surgically. And what the doctors told me they wanted to do was they were going to do this surgery from inside of her eye and repair the top of her orbit from the bottom up. The day before the surgery, they say they've changed their minds. Now what they want to do is take all the bone out of this side of her forehead. They already removed all of this. They want to take all of this out, take the top of her orbit out, put it on a little bench and put it back together with a titanium erector set kind of thing, reinstall it. I start thinking to myself, boy, what's the process that these doctors use to make a decision? Like, how do they come to this conclusion? Now, we've learned a lot about decision-making at NASA from a couple space shuttle accidents that we've had. Now, when I say decision-making, I mean bad decision-making. I think everybody in here probably remembers or knows of the Challenger accident that happened in 1986. We also lost Space Shuttle Columbia in 2003. And that accident hit really close to home for me personally, because 3 of the astronauts on board Columbia were my astronaut classmates. But I was also the unfortunate person that had to pick up their bodies from one case off of a dirt road and from the other 2 in East Texas. So the cause of that accident and what we learned about it became a very important part of the rest of my time at NASA. And we learned a lot about making decisions, really about making bad decisions. So we tried to take some very positive steps after the Columbia accident to improve our decision-making process. And one of the things we did is we built a new conference room for what we call the mission management team. And that's the leadership team that makes decisions when we have people in space. And this conference room is about half the size of this room, and we gave this room some ergonomic features. As an example, everybody sat at the same level. so nobody physically sat higher than anybody else anymore. And we also made sure everybody had access to a microphone, so every single person could be heard. And then we also wrote some things on the walls of this NASA conference room. Now listen to this. On this NASA conference room wall, in one place, in big letters, it says, "None of us is as dumb as all of us." Think about that. None of us is as dumb as all of us. What that means is sometimes a team of people, like you guys here at this table, can be asked to make a decision, and you will march off in a direction that no single individual would have taken if it was their job to make the decision on their own. That sometimes this thing called groupthink can set in, and a team of people can make a really bad decision. That happened before the Challenger accident, happened again before Columbia. Now, we are all about collaborative decision-making at NASA. We find it very important to try to make decisions as a team. But we also realize that the team of people can really mess it up pretty bad. So we try to guard against that. So before Gabby's surgery, I got a bunch of her doctors and residents into one of these little break rooms in the ICU. That's the room with the dirty microwave and the burnt coffee, that little room. And I crammed like 20 people in there. And I tell them this thing about none of us is as dumb as all of us. And then I went around the room to get everybody's opinion as to what we should do. And if I've learned anything from working at our space agency for 15 years, I learned that you do not want to get the opinion of the flight deck director, the chief engineer, or the space shuttle commander first. Because if you get their opinion first, you don't always get the best advice from the people underneath them. So in this little break room, I found the youngest looking resident. This woman looked like she was 17 years old. She was probably about 10 years older than that, and she was an ophthalmology resident. And I said to her, "Hey, I want you to explain to me what's wrong with my wife's eye, and what do you think we should do about it?" And eventually we went up to the neurosurgeon, and they ultimately did a fantastic job repairing Gabby's eye from the top down. You know, before all this happened to my wife, I wasn't a big believer in fate. I just thought the world spins and the clock ticks and things did not happen for any particular reason. A couple months into Gabby's stay in her rehab hospital in Houston, Texas, she was going through a really hard time. I mean, her brain injury gives her this condition called aphasia, which is this difficulty with language. And it was incredibly frustrating for her. And she was just starting to realize that how her life has been changed forever. I mean, she could barely communicate at the time, barely at all. And remember, you know, Gabrielle Giffords, I mean, her name is Gabby. Now she can't speak. And she was going through an incredibly difficult time. And I was starting to realize that maybe I don't have the patience for this. I mean, I am not a patient person. I mean, I fly a rocket ship for my job. I mean, I'm not an incredibly patient person. I was really starting to worry. I mean, do I have it in me to deal with this situation for the rest of my life? Without a doubt. And I really started to be concerned about this. And then I thought back to this experience Gabby and I had about 5 years earlier when we were in London, England, and I was presenting the Royal Society Gold Medal to Dr. Stephen Hawking that we'd flown in space aboard Space Shuttle Discovery. And I think everybody in here know who Dr. Hawking is. Brilliant physicist. He's also disabled from something like Lou Gehrig's disease. He's in a wheelchair, so he can't walk, can't move his arms, he can't speak. But he does have this system on his wheelchair, a computer processor, a tracking device that tracks the motion of a single muscle on his face, and this screen. And we were told that we could talk to Dr. Hawking, we could communicate with him, you know, that voice that we all know. And I was a big fan of Dr. Hawking's. I mean, I'd read some of his books, the ones that had a lot of pictures. And I wanted to meet Stephen Hawking, and we go into the foyer of the Royal Society. There's 100 people in there. It's before lunch. And there's all this noise, and I see Dr. Hawking sitting in his wheelchair. So I go up to him, and I look underneath this screen, this computer screen, and I say, "Hey, Dr. Hawking, I'm Mark Kelly. I was the pilot of Space Shuttle Discovery. We took that metal into space for you. What do you think about that?" And you know what happens? Nothing. Nothing. Now I'm looking at him. I can't tell what he's doing. He's looking at something, but I don't know. Remember I said I'm not very patient? I don't have a lot of patience. Now I'm trying to think, well, what do I do? Like, do I just walk away? Now, fortunately for me, my wife Gabby was standing about 10 feet away watching me really screw this up. She walks up to me, and she physically moves me out of the way. She puts me over here, and then she comes back, and she kneels down on the floor in front of Stephen Hawking's wheelchair, kneels down on the floor, looks him in the eyes, and says, "Dr. Hawking, I'm Gabby Giffords from Tucson, Arizona. It is so nice to meet you. How are you doing?" And then you know what she does? She waits for 5 minutes. And I knew it was 5 minutes because after about a minute, I looked at my watch. And I got to tell you, 5 minutes is an eternity. This is a really long time where she stared into his eyes like nobody else was in this room. And 5 minutes later, that voice comes back and says, "Thank you so much. I'm fine. How are you?" So it was from my wife, Gabby, 5 years earlier, who had to give me a little bit of a lesson about patience and how I was going to need to be more patient with her. And well, I got to say, it never made it really easy. It did make it a whole lot easier. And I really appreciate my wife for that. And it was at that point I started thinking a little bit differently about fate and why and when certain things happen. You know, the day after my wife was shot and nearly assassinated, I called my boss up, the chief astronaut, Dr. Peggy Whitson, who's on board the space station right now. She's now the American with the most time in space, broke my brother's record. And I called up Peggy and I said, "Peggy, I realize I'm supposed to launch in the space shuttle in 3 months as the commander of the final flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour, but Gabby's in a coma. She's in the hospital. I'm in Tucson. I'm not coming back to Houston. Doctors don't know when she's going to be out of this coma, so you got to find a replacement for me." So they find a replacement commander for me on this flight. About a week later, Gabby comes out of her coma. Doctors need to find a good rehab hospital for her, and one of the best hospitals in the world for her kind of injury happened to be in Houston, Texas, 20 miles from the Johnson Space Center. So we move Gabby to that hospital, and about a month or so later, I start contemplating getting my job back. And this is a complicated decision. And I know some of you probably have been in this situation before, and it's kind of horrible. If you haven't, some of you likely will at some point. You know, when do you have to try to reclaim part of your professional life when you have a spouse or child or parent, so sick or injured? And it was a really complicated decision for me for a number of reasons. This decision to go back and fly this final flight. I'd been living in the hospital with my wife, Gabby. I basically hadn't left 24 hours a day for over a month. And it was a difficult decision. One of the reasons it was so difficult is I could not ask my wife, Gabby, what she thought I should do. She had this aphasia at the time. Not only could she not really speak well, but we weren't even really sure she could understand the question. But I knew some things about my wife. First of all, she was certainly the biggest supporter of my career, whether it was in the Navy or at NASA. And she was also a big fan of our space program and a big fan of science in general. When Gabby first went into Congress and they were handing out the committee assignments, my wife asked to be on the science committee. Now, nobody asks to be on the science committee, like ever. And by the time that Gabby was injured, she was the chairwoman of the Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee. So what that means is that in the House of Representatives, my wife controlled NASA's budget. So if you're wondering, yes, I did ask her for more money. but she never gave it to us. At least not because I asked. But she was a big fan of what we did. But the other thing that made this so difficult was the risk involved. You know, I think often people underestimate the risk of flying on a spacecraft. I was on an airplane the other day, and somebody said to me, they said, "Hey, isn't driving my car down the highway more dangerous than flying in the space shuttle?" And I said, no, it's not. I think that actually might be flying in an airplane, might be safer than driving your car. I don't know. But you know, people often underestimate the risk. One flight in the space shuttle is almost, not quite, but almost as dangerous as storming the beach at Normandy on D-Day. Almost that level of risk. And if I wanted to demonstrate the risk in here to all of you, what I could do is I could give all of you a deck of cards, and you get to pick one card from the deck. And if you pick any card other than the ace of spades, you'll win a great prize. But if you pick the ace of spades, you lose your life. Those are the odds that we deal with on each and every space shuttle flight. If we did that in here today with the cards, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 of you would pick the ace of spades and wouldn't get to go home. Those are the odds we deal with, but we realize it. And because of that, we try to reduce the risk in almost everything we do. I mean, we constantly focus on trying to reduce the risk to the lowest extent possible, and we do that in 1,000 different ways. One of the things we do, especially for me as the commander of a space shuttle flight, one of the things we do is, that I do, is try to pay attention to the minor details. It always seems like some minor detail is missed, leads to a chain of events, and this catastrophic thing happens at the end. You know, we've seen that time and time again in airplane accidents, same thing in spaceflight accidents. So paying attention to the details is so important in trying to reduce risk. The other thing we try to do is we try to put great teams of people together, whether this is the team of people aboard the spacecraft or in the Mission Control Center, people that work well together. And as the commander of a space shuttle flight, I get some say as to who my other crew members are going to be. So there are things that I look for in these people, qualities that I want. I'm not going to go into all the details, but my biggest thing, my biggest pet peeve, actually, the thing that I don't want in these people is I don't want the yes people. Yes men, yes women. I am perfectly capable of agreeing with myself. I'm pretty good at it. I think we all are. So before we start training for a flight, which is usually about 1.5 years before we launch into space, I'll sit my crew members down and I'll tell them that they are required to question my decisions. Required. Not optional. Now I also tell them, don't do it out loud where I can hear you. But if you think we should be doing something differently and it affects either safety or mission success, you got to tell me about it, and we're going to figure this out together. So about 4 months after Gabby was shot and still basically in the hospital, my crew members and I went out to the launch pad, Pad 39 Alpha at the Kennedy Space Center, just up the road here, to fly the final flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour. And on the day you're going to fly in space, when you go out there to the launch pad, the place is pretty much abandoned. You know, the army of people that usually work on it are not there anymore because the space shuttle is now fully fueled, and this thing is pretty much a bomb sitting on a hill. And nobody wants to be around it anymore, and you go and you climb in, you get strapped into your seats, and eventually they close the hatch, and you're laying on your back, and you got to start turning on the systems of the space shuttle, APUs, hydraulic system, electrical system, environmental system, OHMS engines, RCS engines, main engines. Computer needs to be in the right modes. You've got 2,000 switches and circuit breakers, all need to be in the right place. You're working through this big checklist. There's a countdown clock heading towards 0. That clock stops a couple times in case you got behind to allow you to catch up. That's when you normally think to yourself, boy, it's a really dumb thing to be doing. But you can't get out and the hatch is closed. It would also be kind of embarrassing at that point to say you've changed your mind. Eventually that clock gets to 6 seconds. The space shuttle 3 main engines come up to full power, but you don't go anywhere because you're bolted to the launch pad with 8 giant bolts about that big, nothing holding you at the top. And then that clock goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When it hits 0, those bolts explode. The white solid rocket boosters, they ignite. And it is literally like the hand of God came down and grabbed you and ripped you off the planet. You know how on TV it looks like you're going up really smoothly? Doesn't feel anything like that. What it feels like is, imagine if you're going down the railroad tracks on a runaway train at 1,000 miles an hour. Incredible amount of vibration. You feel every ounce of 7.5 million pounds of thrust right on your back. And we accelerate from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour in just 8.5 minutes. Now, 2 minutes into the flight, those white solid rocket boosters, they come off, they parachute down into the ocean. NASA sends a ship out there, picks them up, brings them in, sends them to the factory where they were made in Idaho, refurbishes them. We reuse them. I think they're only slightly more expensive to reuse. A little while later, we're going 25 times the speed of sound. Main engine shut down. Orange external tank pops off, flies halfway around the planet, hits the atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean, part blows up, parts go into the ocean. And then we're in orbit around this incredible planet, and it's such an amazing thing to see this big, round, mostly blue ball just floating there in the blackness of space. No strings attached. We're going around it every 90 minutes, so there's a sunrise or sunset every 45 minutes. And the first time I saw this, I couldn't be more struck by the fact that we all live on an island in our solar system. All 7.5 billion of us literally live on an island in our solar system, and we've got no place else to go. I mean, you'll hear people out there talk about, some entrepreneurs and physicists talk about, hey, we're all going to Mars someday. You're not going to Mars. I mean, we need to really take care of this planet that we live on and call home. There's nothing better than planet Earth, and this is the only one we got. A little while later, about a day and a half into the flight, we dock with this International Space Station. We have this 1 million-pound space station in orbit, size of a football field. My crew members and I installed this $2 billion cosmic particle detector, looking for antimatter, dark energy in the universe. They did a bunch of spacewalks to fix some stuff on the outside and refurbished it, and we resupplied this space station. And about 10 days later, it was time to come home. So we undock, and about a day and a half later, on the day you want to land over the middle of the Indian Ocean, you do what's called the deorbit burn to bring your spacecraft back into the atmosphere. Now, the space shuttle is an incredible spaceship. It's by far the best spaceship we have ever built. It's also a decent rocket ship. But unfortunately, it's also the worst airplane I've ever flown in my life. It's a really bad airplane. And now you have to fly this airplane through the atmosphere and land at a runway just north of here. And the thing's a glider. And unfortunately for me, the guy who has to fly it, it glides about as well as this podium or a Coke machine. Not a good glider. So what we do is we turn around over the middle of the Indian Ocean, and we slow down from 17,500 to 17,300. And that little bit of deceleration, because of physics, we descend. When we descend, we hit the atmosphere. And by the time we're over the Pacific Ocean, with all the friction, we are in a giant fireball bigger than this building. And we go screaming across the Pacific in a big ball of fire, and it's 5,000 degrees 1 foot outside the window. Now, at this point, we can't decide, hey, we want to land in Hawaii or California or Texas or anywhere else in Florida. We've got to land at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on that single runway, long runway. Has anybody seen this runway? Yeah, you may have noticed that there's water the entire length of the runway. I always found that kind of odd, because what's in water here in Florida? Alligators. I think NASA put that there as added motivation to land the $2 billion spaceship right on the runway. And eventually you come over Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula, you eventually roll into this 30-degree or 20-degree dive, 10 times steeper than an airliner, 300 knots. touchdown about 200 knots, put a parachute out, roll down the runway. Eventually, we come to a stop. A couple hours later, we've got everything turned off, and we climb out. Now, my wife, Gabby, could not be there on the day we landed. She was there, she got out of the hospital on the day we launched into space, but she was recovering from her final brain surgery, which she had her last operation while I was in orbit. And that was to replace the piece of skull that they removed on the day she was injured, about the size of my hand, with a prosthetic. Now, if any of you folks would ever come to our house in Tucson, if you haven't been there before, one of the first things Gabby will do is she'll go up to the freezer and she'll pull out this blue Tupperware where she keeps her real skull. Now, this really freaks people out. But I think it demonstrates, the power of the human spirit. How people fight so hard to survive and then fight to come back. And at least, especially in Gabby's case, at least do not take themselves so seriously. I saw my wife's spirit really on display about 5 or 6 months after she was nearly killed, when she made this pretty bold decision to go back to Congress to vote on a bill that would raise the debt ceiling. She was still recovering in a hospital, and these debt ceiling votes are pretty controversial votes. I think a lot of other members of Congress would have loved to have been able to say, hey, I'm in the hospital, I'm not coming. But now my wife, Gabby, she'd been reading about this in the newspaper, watching this unfold on TV, and on the morning of the vote, I called Gabby up and I said, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to be there today? Do you want to go to Washington, D.C. for this? She said she did. Her Capitol Police detail and the 2 nurses that are with her, they head to the airport from the hospital. Now I'm about an hour south at our house in Houston. Now, have any of you guys in here, have you ever packed for your wife for a trip? This is perhaps the most dangerous thing I've ever done. I throw this stuff in the suitcase, clothes, stuff, and I race to the airport. I get about halfway there, and the nurse calls me up and says, you have all of her medication, right? I turn around, back to the house. I grab this big bag of drugs. I race to the airport. Barely make it to the airplane in time. We fly to Washington, D.C. We go to this hotel. Gabby's young female staff members open up that suitcase and realize they need to go to the mall. So they go buy her some clothes. And she barely makes it to the floor of the House of Representatives in time. And I cannot be more proud of my wife, Gabby. After everything she'd been through, to show up that day, to just do her job. I think a New Jersey newspaper described this the best. They said, after months of rancor and pettiness, one small woman brought Washington to its feet. They went on and said, we can compromise on how we fund America. We cannot compromise on how we define America. That definition does not require words. Just look to Gabby Giffords. Gabby and I, Gabby and I attended the sentencing hearing for the guy who shot her and killed 6 of her constituents and shot 12 others. And it was a surreal experience to be in that courtroom with him on that day. I'd never been in the same room with this guy, never seen him in person. Gabby does not remember him from the day she was shot, largely because she was shot in the head and she was the first person that was shot. In fact, the only thing she remembers from that day is a year later, when we go back to the Safeway supermarket. A year later, she remembered where she parked. Now, I go into Walmart and I come out, I can't find my car. But she remembered where she parked. And we had this opportunity to read a statement to the court, but Gabby wanted a statement read to him, the guy who did this. So in this courtroom, I turned this podium around, and she stared him in the eyes for like 20 minutes as I read her statement. And we told him a bunch of different things. And the first thing we told him is that Gabby would certainly trade her own life to bring back any of those 6 individuals that died that day, especially 9-year-old Christina Taylor Greene. who was born on 9/11 and had very high-minded ideas about service and democracy and deserved an entire life committed to advancing them. You know, she didn't live to see her 10th birthday. She was only there to ask Gabby a question about the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And she was next in line, and they never even met. You know, we also told them that Gabby's life has been changed forever. The things that she used to find so easy to do are now almost all impossible or really, really hard. But despite putting a bullet through her head, he hasn't put a dent in her spirit and her desire to make the world a better place. You know, Gabby would have loved to have been here with all of you today. You know, she is, I think, one of the strongest promoter of, you know, women. I remember at one point, while she was still in Congress and she was getting ready to hire a new legislative director, and she told me this woman's name, and it was Julie or something, and I'm like, Gabby, your office is currently 90% women. You're going to get sued. But she always has this attitude, and I think she's right. And she says this over and over again, that strong women get things done. So she wanted to be here, but she couldn't. Maybe some other time, but she wanted me to send all of you a message. I mentioned Gabby has aphasia, difficulty with language, so we're trying to figure out what she was going to say to all of you, just something short. We're doing this at the breakfast table the other day. She's eating her breakfast. I'm trying to help her. Now I was complaining about my right arm hurting. I ripped the bicep tendon off the bone in my right arm, pole vaulting. Right? That's true. I know it's ridiculous, but it is true. And I was complaining to Gabby about how my right elbow hurt, and she looks up from her yogurt and with just the raise of her eyebrows says to me, "Are you frickin' kidding me?" So this is from Gabby to all of you. I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. It's really short. Be bold, be courageous, and be your best. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Captain Mark Kelly, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can just give us 5 more minutes just to do the draw for the call to the heart. I know we're running a little behind program, but if I can ask Virginia Spencer if she wouldn't mind doing the drawing for us. There's just 5 items we're going to draw for the winner to the call to the heart. And we ask that on the way out, if you can maybe take the time to stop over at the Kendra Scott location and maybe buy your Mother's Day gift. Sunday's Mother's Day, for those of you who may have forgot. Kendra Scott is giving back 20% of their proceeds to executive women of the Palm Beaches. So if you want to get some shopping done, we would appreciate that as well. Do you have the mic? There's a mic. The first drawing we're going to do is for the Kendra Scott jewelry and home package value at over $1,000. Jennifer Hyland. You know which one that is? The second drawing is for the weekend at the Chesterfield Hotel and basket of tea. That's Jennifer. Congratulations. Portia, I think that's Portia Cully. Is Portia still here? We'll give it to her? Yeah. All right. I guess you don't have to be present to win. I'm sorry. Normally they had been. Next Next item is the Italian leather purse and cuff bracelet valued at $800, donated by Ceci Martinez, and that is to Stacy Woolston? Stacy? Is Stacy here? Yay! The next drawing is for the Coco Fit Club membership valued at $1,000, along with a Pandora bracelet, which is valued at $500, donated by our member Patty Light. Deborah Calhoun, is it? Cololela?
Deborah Cole-Layla.
Do we know?
Sorry for butchering your name.
Sorry. Next item for drawing is one of the two gift baskets, which include, one basket includes 3 bottles of wines and several gift cards to dining all over and around Palm Beach County. Pam Swenson. And our final drawing is the second gift basket, which also has 3 bottles of wine and several gift cards around Palm Beach County. Virginia, pull my name. Come on. Natalie? No, I'm not just kidding. Robin Lee. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program. We thank you for staying a little over. We hope you enjoyed it and have a wonderful afternoon. And we hope that you will join us again next year.